Greetings, everyone. So the title of this message is T.D. Hale's Dream and the Rapture event revisited. So why am I bringing this up? Okay, on the Sabbath day, which is today, even so, I was doing some stuff, right? Hanging out with Jesus and going through some stuff and really reflecting on my life and everything that he has done for me. And I really do thank the Lord for the people that he's placed in my way to help me to get focused and really understand that the work that I do is not in vain and that it actually does build fruit for the kingdom, as far as helping other people to come closer to Jesus, because that's what it's all about for me, is, bringing people closer to God, as well as me getting closer to God as well. So why am I bringing up this message to T.D. Hale's Dream? It's one of those download moments that you guys might have are familiar with when it comes to me, where I would just be hanging out with Jesus and next thing you know, boom, a download. And I was like, okay, let's run with this for a little bit and see what happens. Okay, so the information that I will present to you now, it is not set in stone. That's number one. It's not set in stone, but it is definitely something to keep our senses, our spiritual senses, on the alert for. What I'm about to show you is a possible event, a trigger event that will let us know the timing of the rapture. We're not saying that I know the set date and time, because I do not, but there are certain events that, if T.D. Hale's dream holds to be true and from the Lord, will tell us how close we will be from the rapture after this event take place. As I said before, this is not set in stone. I'm not saying that this is the absolute revelation. This can more than likely, and probably is, just a piece of it. But a thought came to mind, something came to mind that the Lord brought to my remembrance. And whether I heard from the Lord correctly or not, only time will tell. But as of right now, I am releasing this message as a just in case kind of thing, where if it does happen, then be aware that the rapture may be just around the corner kind of thing. So take it with a grain of salt. And if these events begin to happen, very similar to what I share with you, then we know, okay, the rapture is definitely near. We need to be on the alert. So now let us proceed ahead to the next portion of the study. And so we will begin by reading portions of T.D. Hale's fourth dream that we are familiar with, the striking of a document with a gavel by the Obama administration, by Obama himself. It's kind of weird to even speak about this because he is no longer sitting in the seat of the presidency, right? Yeah, we got that. But there is a certain element which began to come to surface where I believe we need to pay attention to. Can we say that T.D. Hale's dream was irrelevant and it should be tossed out? Not after I show you this information. I'm about to show you that chances are T.D. Hale's dream concerning this event that he saw is quite possible and still active today, and we should keep it on the radar. So the script here, it says, "This dream was given to me on November 24, 2012. In this dream, I was immediately taken into the Oval Office. I was standing in the Oval Office looking at the President of the United States. It was so real that I felt like I could reach my hand out and touch the man. He was standing behind the desk. When I stood in front of him, all of a sudden, I heard a voice, and I knew it was the voice of God. I heard the voice say, 'Weep and howl for the misery that shall come shortly.'" So the note that I put here, number one, says Obama was president in a dream. So we got that, right? T.D. Hale was taken to a moment in time where at the beginning of a thing, right, will commence the words in which he heard the Lord say, which is, "Weep and howl for the misery that shall come shortly." So from the time that we have Obama in the office, there is a chain of events that will now take place shortly, and which shall cause much sorrow. And we keep asking the question, well, how could that be so if he is no longer sitting in the White House? Well, like I said, hold on to your hats. About to find out some interesting stuff now. And then it goes on to say in his dream, Then all of a sudden I turned, and when I turned, I saw there on the floor of the Oval Office was that eagle that I saw him shoot back in the dream I had in December 2011. And so I remember reading about that dream. It turns out that he had that dream around Hanukkah. It was the celebration of Hanukkah when he received that dream. You can go ahead and look at it. It's pretty interesting. And it says, I saw the president walk behind a desk with that same smirk, that same arrogant smirk on his face that he had on the Truman balcony in my other dream. And so, of course, me being inquisitive about this, I wanted to find out a little bit more about Truman. Like, why is it called Truman balcony? The fact that he was on that balcony and the name Truman was mentioned, that means that he must play a pretty interesting role as to what the president was doing in that time. And so the first bullet says, Truman, I already researched this, by the way, guys. Truman's major accomplishment following World War II was the introduction of America to a globalized platform. What I mean by this, it means that he brought America from isolationism to the global stage. And it says he helped found the UN in 1945. So this was under the Truman administration, and the creation of NATO in 1949. So not only did he help found the UN, but also NATO, Truman that is. And it goes on to say he was the creator of the Truman Doctrine in 1947. So from 45 to 49, he was pretty busy globalizing the world, huh? He says he was the creator of the Truman Doctrine in 1947 to contain communism. And so this action created the type of framework which began the conflict with Russia as his policies attacked the then known as the Soviet Union. So it was not a direct attack against Russia, but rather it was about the Red Scare, the season of the Red Scare, and containing the Iron Curtain, which was the Soviet Union at the time. So based on the Truman Doctrine, it kind of created that platform of conflict with Russia, which we now see coming into full bloom today. And we see that in this current day and age that there has been much disagreement between the Putin administration and the Obama administration. And so since Obama was seen as in the past vision on Truman balcony, and it turns out that Truman was a big driving force in creating a global society, like a global function such as the UN and NATO, and also the Truman Doctrine. It seems like there is a type of parallel between Truman's effort on the global stage and what Obama's effort is, as we see both participating in similar arenas with the same level of impact, shall I say, in regards to foreign relations with Russia. And then, in the dream of T.D. Hale, he goes on to say in the next part of his description is that he came out from behind a desk and he walked over to the eagle and he put his foot on the neck of the eagle. Then at this point, he bent down and he took it by its head, and then he twisted it 3 times until the head of the eagle came off of its body. Then at that point, I heard a voice say, "The spirit of Rehoboam." So at this point, I believe the twisting of the neck, as the notes is presented there before you to help me keep my mind together, I believe the twisting of the neck 3 times represents 3 blows that was dealt to America under Obama's administration. These 3 blows are found in the story of King Rehoboam, son of Solomon. Right? And so it says the removing of the head of the eagle may also symbolize an Islamic connection with decapitation. I don't know, because that the eagle has been shot, right? So the eagle, like if you listen to the past dream of T.D. Hale, so the eagle has been shot. The eagle is no longer alive. The eagle is dead, right? But to take it a step further, the eagle is picked up, head is twisted 3 times until the neck comes off. Yeah, that kind of like rings some bells, like decapitation, the Islamic issue happened on the world platform, and the Syrian refugee crisis around the world. Yeah, it seems like there must be some kind of Islamic connection to the attack, I would say, to any future issues with America. And the fact that it was done 3 times, and it's very interesting how he said 3 times that this happened, like the three turning, I'm sorry, he turned it 3 times. So what this brings to my attention is that maybe we should look at Rehoboam, since it was the spirit of Rehoboam that was upon him in the dream, upon Obama in the dream. Let's look at Rehoboam and find out if there are 3 specific blows that he dealt to the land of Israel. And so we are at the first blow, which was to increase the burden of the people. Because remember how Rehoboam's father Solomon, he built all these different things which require money. And so the taxes upon the people was heavy. And so people had to pay a heavy tax to meet the demands of the king, who had this ambition to build the different monuments that you saw in Israel. And so with this increase in taxes, which means that the people had to work even harder and work longer hours to make up the money to be able to pay the tax. And so the people came to Rehoboam after he took over the throne and was pleading with them and asking them, hey, can he just lower the burden that King Solomon put on the people? Can he reduce the taxes so this way they can live? You know, people don't want to live to pay tax only. They want to live to enjoy life. And so in 1 Kings 12 it says, and the king answered the people roughly, and forsook the old men's counsel that they gave him, and spake to them after the counsel of the young men, saying, my father made your yoke heavy, and I will add to your yoke. My father also chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Wherefore the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was from the Lord, that he might perform his saying, which the Lord spake by Ahijah the Shilonite unto Jeroboam the son of Nebat. So if Obama has the spirit of Rehoboam upon him and his administration, this is when he was in presidency, by the way, that means that his presidency and what he has done might have increased the burden of the people, whether it be economically, socially, financially. There's been a whole lot of things that has been occurring under his administration, which could raise some questions and stuff as far as what was really, progressed. What did we achieve? Because it was like there's a whole lot of talks about, hey, don't ruin the progress that we have made. And the question I'm trying to ask is, what progress exactly was made when there's been even more issues than I can remember? So the second blow, or the second twisting of the head of the eagle, is a dividing the nation. 1 Kings 12 says, so when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, what portion have we in David? Neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel. Now see to thine own house, David. So Israel departed unto their tents. But as for the children of Israel which dwelt in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them. Then King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the tribute. And all Israel stoned him with stones, that he died. Therefore King Rehoboam made speed to get him up to his chariots to flee to Jerusalem. So Israel rebelled against the house of David unto this day. So the second blow that was dealt by Rehoboam was a dividing of Israel because of his administration, because of his policy of what he laid out, and not easing the burden of the people, but rather adding on to it. It divided the nation. So Israel became a divided house now. And when we look at the presidency of Obama, whether it was his fault or not, I'm not putting the blame on anyone, because it's not my call to play that kind of judge at all. I could judge myself and saying how I am a sinner and I need to be saved, and I judge myself saying I'm nothing without Jesus. But as far as what specific role he plays, God truly knows. But what I'm saying is that under his administration, our nation has been greatly divided, especially when it comes to racial tension and the rich against the poor. And next we see the third blow, or the third twisting of the neck of the eagle, and that is the wealth of the nation plundered to foreign powers. Let's go to 1 Kings 12. And this is under the reign of Jeroboam, right? And it says, and Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins, which they had committed, above all that their fathers had done. So they committed a sin in the land of Judah that was worse than any of the past leaders has come from. Well, the leaders who occupied the leadership in the past. And 23 says, for they also built them high places and images and groves, and on every high hill and under every green tree. So idolatry and abominations and all kinds of paganism was beginning to arise like never before. And in 24 it says, and there were also sodomites in the land, and they did according to all the abominations of the nations which the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. So now Judah was looking more like a daughter of Babylon at this point. And it came to pass in the 5th year of King Rehoboam that Shishka, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem, and he took away their treasures of the house of the Lord. So now you see the city was not taken into captivity. It was not burnt down or anything like that to the dust. But it says specifically what the king of Egypt came to do. And it says he took away the treasures, which means that the economy of Israel was affected by a foreign power. He took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house. He even took away all the shields of gold which Solomon had made. And Rehoboam made in their stead brazen shields, and committed them unto the hands of the chief of the guard, which kept the door of the king's house. And it was so, when the king went into the house of the Lord, that the guard bare them and brought them back into the guard chamber. So the third blow, because of Jeroboam's transgression, right? The way that he treated the people is that the wealth of his kingdom, Judah, was plundered by a foreign power, Egypt. And so we have to ask, like, how has our economy been doing as far as bringing money back into the nation instead of the money being taken from us and given to a foreign power? Have the nation been plundered by billions of dollars due to one reason or another under his administration? And so when it says that he had the spirit of Rehoboam, now as I mentioned before, if T.D. Jakes' dream is truly from the Lord and the words is true, then it says that when he has the spirit of Rehoboam, it reflects about the 3 blows that Rehoboam had allowed to strike Israel. There should have been 3 blows that was allowed to strike America, and so far it seems to be pretty accurate at this point. And so now we saw what happened. The 3 major things that the Lord is bringing to our attention, which would happen under the Obama administration. As I said before, this dream is truly accurate and from the Lord. And we saw that when he was sitting in a house of the presidency, that these would be the 3 blows that would hit America under his charge. Next, we move on to the next part of his dream, which is very interesting. And check it out. It says, as I began to look at him again, he was dressed in all black. He had a black suit on, a black tie, a black shirt, black pants. Everything was totally black that I saw him wearing. Then, as I was looking directly at him, all of a sudden his chest cavity around his heart began to open up. His heart was exposed, and as I was looking at his heart, this thick, black, dark mist was swirling around his heart, and I knew that God was letting me see the evil that is really in that man. Now, at this point, he walked over to the desk, and he picked up a gavel in his hand. The gavel was part wood and part stone. The handle was wood, and the head of the gavel was stone. And so this can possibly represent a change in job role, where Obama goes from being the president of the United States to the 9th member of the Supreme Court Justice. Okay, so I know that you're probably thinking that at this point in time, I might have lost it. Like, I don't even know what I'm talking about. And to be honest with you, it would be kind of hard for me to believe that as well. Like, wait a minute, you're trying to tell me that, that the president, Obama, can become a chairman of the Supreme Court? He can become a member of the Supreme Court? That has never happened before. Until I have done my research to discover that there was a president who fulfilled both roles before, where he was a president of the United States and then he went on to be one of the members of the Supreme Court. And his name is William Howard Taft. And the notes here, it says that he served as the 27th president of the United States and as the 10th Chief Justice of the United States. It says that he is the only person to have held both offices. And then it says, Taft was elected president in 2008, the chosen successor of Theodore Roosevelt, but was defeated for re-election by Woodrow Wilson in 1912, after Roosevelt split the Republican vote by running as a third-party candidate. In 1921, President Warren G. Harding appointed Taft. See that? President Warren G. Harding, a president, appointed Taft to be Chief Justice, a position in which he served until a month before his death. So there has been a person in our line of presidents that has played both roles, that actually sat and fulfilled the position of both roles as the President of the United States and a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And so, two well-known quotes from William Howard Taft, which caught my attention, and I want to share it with you, is presidents come and go, but the Supreme Court goes on forever. Interesting, right? And the next is, no tendency is quite so strong in human nature as the desire to lay down rules of conduct for other people. I found that to be very interesting of him to say. Now to the next point. It says 7 things you might not know about the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm not going to read all 7, but just key things which stood out to me. First, it says there are no official qualifications for becoming a Supreme Court justice. And a note here says the Constitution spells out age, citizenship, residency requirement for becoming President of the United States or a member of Congress, but mentions no roles for joining the nation's highest court. To date, 6 justices have been foreign-born. The most recent was Felix Frankfurter, who served on the courts from 1939 to 1962, and he was a native of Vienna, Austria. The youngest associate justice ever appointed was Joseph Story, who was 32 years old when he joined the bench in 1811. Associate Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., who served from 1902 to 1932, retired at age 90, making him the oldest person ever to sit on the court. So as you can see here, if you continue to read on towards the bottom, let's see, was the last justice who... Alright, and it says James Burns, who served on the court from 1941 to 1942, was the last justice who didn't attend law school. And it says Burns, who also didn't graduate from high school, worked as a law clerk and later passed the bar exam. Another thing it says here, says during the 18th and 19th century, before attending law school was standard practice, many future justices got their legal training by studying under a mentor. Moving down the line, it says Harvard has produced more members of the... Whoa, I didn't see that before. Check this out. It says Harvard has produced more members of the court than any other law school. To date, 20 justices have attended or graduated from the venerable institution, which was established in 1817 and is America's oldest continually operating law school. Remember that. Harvard, Harvard, Harvard. I didn't see that until now. You'll see why I want you to remember Harvard. Okay, so Harvard produced the most justices to date. Okay, let's move on to the next piece. And so for the next piece, we've already spoke about this, but I thought I'd bring it up anyway. It says William Howard Taft is the only person to have served as U.S. president and on the court. The first. All right, that was the short note there. That's it. Moving along. So the key thing I want you to take away from this about George Washington was the fact that it says that he appointed the most justices to the court. But really, that's not what I want you to remember. What I want you to remember is the first sentence. It says, the President of the United States has the sole power to nominate Supreme Court justices whenever there are openings on the court, and each nomination must be confirmed by the U.S. Senate. Hold on to that thought. Next, we have this article, which is dated to 30th of September 2016. The title, Which One, with one seat vacant, the Supreme Court returns. And we're going to read some notes here. It says, still somewhat hobbled without a ninth justice to complete its bench, the Supreme Court returns to work in public next week with no way of knowing when that vacancy will be filled, and which presidents will name the occupant. President Obama or his successor. The future of the courts, not just in the next few months, but well beyond, depends on how that constitutional task is carried out. At the start of a new term on October's first Monday, the 8th Justice might actually be destined to work through next February or even later, with the uncertainty, however, over how the political branches, specifically the White House and the Senate, make up their minds on a replacement for the late Justice Antonin Scalia. He died almost 8 months ago, and a successor chosen by Obama has been waiting almost 7 months for an end to the political impasse over the empty seats. And then when you go down to the last sentence, it says, although there is a possibility that the Senate might be coaxed into voting on President Obama's nominee, which is Circuit Judge Merrick B. Garland, in a post-election lame duck succession. It says the more likely prospect is that Garland's nomination will expire at the end of the current session of Congress without any Senate action. And so what has happened here is that there was a delay in appointing the justice that was nominated by President Barack Obama until the shifting of the presidency, until a new president would come in and would make a choice as to who that president would nominate as the next Supreme Court justice, which is now under the charge of President Donald Trump. My question is, I wonder who will he end up choosing as the 9th justice of the Supreme Court, after we learned that there's really no official requirements, and that the most common thing that they all had in common is that they attended law school, and also that the one university that produced the most justices so happened to be Harvard University, which I ask that you remember because it's about to get very interesting. And so now we're going to take a look at Barack Obama again, because in the beginning of this message, we spoke about what he has done in his presidency, the 3 blows to America, and then how later on we saw how T.D. Jakes was explaining what he saw, that it was Barack Obama pretty much wearing a judge outfits as a member of the Supreme Court justice. And when we look at his career, like his major in the college he went to and the university he went to, you had the note before you from Wikipedia. There you go. And it says community organizer and Harvard Law School. This is his law career. 2 years after graduating from Columbia, Obama was hired in Chicago as director of the Developing Communities Project. Check. Now let's move down to the second paragraph. There you go. It says, Obama entered Harvard Law School in the fall of 1988, living in nearby Somerville, Massachusetts. He was selected as the editor of the Harvard Law Review at the end of his first year, president of the journal in his second year, and research assistant to the constitutional scholar Lawrence Tribe while at Harvard for 2 years. And it goes on to say that Obama's election as the first black president of the Harvard Law Review gained national media attention. So this is when he began to rise up in fame to where people would begin to know who he was. And it says that he did some other stuff. Got it. Lastly, it said the manuscript was published in 1995 as Dreams from My Father. We got that check. Is there anything else here I want to present to you? All right, so it says Chicago law and civil rights attorney. And it says in 1991, Obama accepted a 2-year position as visiting law and government fellow at the University of Chicago Law School to work on his first book. So to sum this all up, the same pedigree that was common among the previous chief justices in the past decades, Obama has the requirements. He has the exact pedigree that is needed to actually be nominated as a Supreme Court justice. And it doesn't say that you need to have a practicing law degree. It just says that a common thing that they all had was that. And I even mentioned how there was one individual, one Supreme Court justice, who didn't even graduate from law school. As a matter of fact, he didn't even graduate from high school, but he was appointed for that position because he learned that trade as an apprentice under one who had that pedigree. And so now we return back to T.D. Hale's dream. And he says in his dream, on the desk of the President of the United States, there is a document with these words written on it, the final abomination. He then hits the document on his desk with the gavel. And when he hits this document on the desk, then all of a sudden I felt a shaking. Honestly, I felt like my bed was shaking. Literally, it was shaking and I could feel it. When he hit this document, I shot up into the air and I was standing up above the White House. So what it seems like is happening here, this is me just guessing, right? At this point, there is a document in which the Obama administration has already written out when he was the president, right? Could it be the 70 nation gathering with the two-state solution over Israel and Palestine? Maybe this was the document, right? So we're listening here, right? So there's this document in which he probably already had drafted when he was president, which did not go into effect until towards the end of his presidency that we saw happen on the 15th of January 2017 in Paris. And then later on, with the same documents he created in the Oval Office when he was president, if this is true and he is the next Supreme Court justice, the same document he already has circulating, he will go ahead and use whatever means that he's planning on using to enforce this document into a type of into law, into an abiding agreement. And so this is why it's interesting. It says that he strikes this document with a gavel, this document which was on the Oval Office in which he was in. And in Proverbs 16, it says, everyone that is proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Though hand join in hand, he shall not be unpunished. And so it says that, and so in the dream, he says the document written across the document was the final abomination. So whatever this document is, it will serve as a final act of pride, a final act of defiance against the Lord Jesus Christ, against the Lord Yahweh. This final act of defiance will trigger judgment upon the nation. And note how in the second part of Proverbs 16, it says, though hand join in hand, he shall not be unpunished. So when we think about hand join in hand, it could be a little indicator of the Lord telling us what this document is. Because this document is going to be a final act of defiance against Yahweh. And the greatest act of defiance that we see happening today concerns dividing the land of Israel. And it says, though hand join hand. We're speaking about the 70 nations here, right? Hand joining hand against Israel. So though hand join hand, he shall not be unpunished. Which means though the nations may gather, they shall be punished for their final act of abomination, their final act of pride and defiance against me, the great Yahweh. Next it says, in his dream, then an earthquake hit Washington, D.C. Then I saw the earth open up and it went towards the Washington Monument, then towards the Jefferson Memorial. At that point, I began to see an odd-colored rain falling. It was the color of fire or something. It started slowly coming down. Then it intensified little by little. It was coming down faster and faster until the waters started rising. As the water started rising, I went up higher into the atmosphere and I saw the map of the United States. I could see the outline. The waters left Washington and began to flood across the whole United States. I saw them hit Maryland, West Virginia, Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, Indiana, South Carolina until it completely went all across the United States. This is the final blow to American sovereignty. And chances are, from what I can understand, that fire that was falling down slowly, that was the sign in the sky of the Lord coming to rapture his people. Because it says that the fire was falling slowly and it began to accelerate as the water began to rise. So this is the Lord preparing the mission, the rescue mission to snatch up his bride and take him away from his judgment that he is bringing down on the nation. Now understand that the judgment of this great shaking that will happen in America is not by the hands of another nation. All right. This is the wrath of God upon America, where God directly will shake America up. And since we are not appointed to wrath, those who are in Jesus Christ will be taken out of the way as he sends his own unique wrath, the great shaking upon the land. Now remember, this has nothing to do with World War III. This has nothing to do with anything that the nation may try to do. But this is God himself coming down and bringing down wrath upon a proud nation while he snatches up his bride. This is why the fire intensified little by little, because it was him coming down to snatch up his bride. And in speaking about the water going to the Washington Monument and the Jefferson Memorial, the notes that I want you to remember here is that at the bottom it says the Jefferson Memorial is a presidential memorial in Washington, D.C. dedicated to Thomas Jefferson, one of the most important of the American founding fathers, as the main drafter and writer of the Declaration of Independence, member of the Continental Congress, governor of the newly independent Commonwealth of Virginia. So pretty much Thomas Jefferson was very important because he was the drafter and writer of the Declaration of Independence. And the fact that this water, when the earth opened up, this earthquake which struck at the monument, which is like the big symbol of Washington D.C., and also touching the Jefferson Memorial, is speaking about, it demonstrates the final blow to American sovereignty. And into the final part of this dream, it says, "As I was in the air, I saw America in this state of being covered with these floodwaters. Then all of a sudden, as I was suspended in the air, I could see these beams of light quickly coming up out of the floodwaters, like at the speed of lights. They were quickly going up into the air. There were millions, it looked like. Then at that moment, I was taken higher above the earth, and I could see the round earth, and all over the earth I started seeing these lights shooting up all over the world. Then I came back down to the earth as if I was back at the beginning of this dream. As if he was back at the beginning of this dream. Then I heard a voice say, 'The shifting has begun.'" The shifting has begun. And so, brothers and sisters, this concludes the message that I'm presenting to you today. As I said before, there is no hard fact to prove what I am saying is true. Take this before the Lord. As I said before, this is what I felt was like one of the other downloads of a prophetic word of knowledge that the Lord tends to give me out of nowhere, out the blue. You know, we're just hanging out and then boom, he just hits me with it. And I was like, okay, this must be my next assignment that I must do. So regardless, brothers and sisters, no matter what happens, as long as you remain in Jesus Christ, as long as you keep your eyes lifted and focus on Jesus Christ, you will have nothing to worry about in regards to the end time events being fulfilled. Whether what I say is true or not, only time will tell. But whether I say is true or not, as long as you stay rooted in Jesus Christ and you allow him to be the one who shall direct you in every step of the way, you will have nothing to fear. But one way or another, the Lord is coming back for his bride. And it is the time and the season for the last voices to go out through the land and to prepare the bride of Christ for our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ's soon return. I love you all, and thank you so much for staying tuned in to this message.